Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're taken to the skies.
Hmm.
It's UK drone regulations.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna try to decode this stuff because honestly, sometimes I feel like I need a whole new dictionary.
It's true.
Yeah,
It can feel like you're navigating a labyrinth of legal jargon.
exactly. And we've got like a stack of CAA documents, CIP 722's incident reports, even the drone code. We're gonna try to break it down so you don't have to.
Absolutely. We're here to make it digestible.
Please. So one thing that struck me, even with all these rules, the UK is seeing a massive surge in drone use, even among younger folks. What's going on there?
Well, it's really fascinating to see the accessibility of drones these days. Did you know that even a 12-year-old can pilot a drone in the UK?
Wait, 12? Seriously?
Within the open category, that's correct.
Wow, that just shows you how mainstream this tech is becoming. But with that comes a huge responsibility to make sure those young pilots are flying safely.
Absolutely. It really highlights the importance of early education, understanding the drone code, airspace rules, safety precautions, all from a young age.
It's not just playing with toys anymore.
Exactly. It's a whole other ballgame.
So how does the UK even begin to regulate something so complex and so rapidly changing?
Well, the UK has adopted this three-tiered approach to regulating drones. They've got it broken down into the open, the specific, and the certified categories.
Okay, break those down for me. What did those actually mean for someone who wants to fly?
So a good analogy is to think of driving licenses.
Yeah.
You've got your bicycle, which is similar to the open category.
Yeah.
It's less restrictive, designed for recreational use in low-risk environments.
So that's like me on a Sunday afternoon taking my drone for a spin in the park.
Exactly. However, just like with cycling, there are still rules of the road to follow, even within the open category.
Right, it's not a free-for-all.
Right. And within open, you've got further subcategories, A1, A2, and A3, each with its limitations on how close you can fly to people, the type of drone you can use, and a bunch of other factors.
So even open has some layers to it.
It does.
And it's all about mitigating risk.
Exactly.
Making sure that even in a more relaxed category, things are still being done safely. So I'm guessing when we step up to specific, it gets a lot more, well, specific.
You got it. The specific category is really for operations that come with a higher level of complexity or potential risk. Think of it like getting a special permit to drive your car on a racetrack. That's kind of the equivalent of the specific category in the drone world.
So we're talking additional qualifications, stricter checks, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And then there's certified. That sounds like the big leagues.
It is. Certified is our commercial truck license equivalent. It's reserved for those really complex operations that have the highest potential impact on people or property. We're talking large drones, transporting hazardous materials, carrying passengers, all that futuristic stuff we're starting to see.
So certified is the real deal. It's heavily regulated for good reason. But this whole categorization system, it's designed to create a framework where people can actually use these things while keeping everyone safe, right?
Precisely. It's all about balancing, encouraging innovation, while also making sure that the risks are minimized. Knowing which category applies to you is absolutely essential, because that's going to determine the rules you need to follow. And let me tell you, there are some surprises within those rules.
Yeah, speaking of surprises, when I was looking through these CAA documents, some of these regulations really caught me off guard. Like, did you know there are actually zones around airports where you just can't fly a drone?
You're talking about runway protection zones.
Right.
It's a crucial safety measure
Okay.
to prevent any interference between drones and manned aircraft.
Right. Imagine looking up and seeing your drone anywhere near a passenger plane during takeoff or landing. That's not good.
Not good at all. And that's why those runway protection zones exist. They extend 5 kilometers from each end of the runway, and they go up to 2,000 feet. It creates a buffer zone to stop exactly those scenarios from happening. Drones are completely prohibited in those zones unless you have prior authorization from air traffic control.
So knowing where you are in the air in relation to an airport, that is crucial. And it's not just airports either, right? These reports also mention these flight restriction zones, which sound equally serious.
They are. Flight restriction zones are set up around sensitive areas, so think prisons, military bases, or even areas where they're having big events.
Right.
And the thing about these zones is they can be dynamic. They can change based on current security needs or events that are happening, so you always have to check if there are any temporary restrictions before you even think about flying.
Wow. It makes you realize how much is going on behind the scenes to manage all of that airspace. It's like a carefully choreographed dance up there. And speaking of unexpected things in the air, I was so surprised to learn that battery-related drone incidents, they actually spike during the winter months. Who knew?
It's a really good reminder that the temperature can seriously affect battery performance. As the temperature drops, lithium batteries, they just lose their capacity, and that means the risk of them malfunctioning goes up.
So that winter wonderland flight might sound really nice in theory, but you got to think twice about your battery's limits when it's cold out there.
Absolutely. Pre-flight checks are so important at any time of year, but winter is when you've really got to pay attention. It's always better to be cautious and postpone your flight if the conditions aren't right.
Yeah, better to be grounded than grounded for the wrong reasons. Speaking of pre-flight checks, one of the things that stood out to me from those CAA safety reports was just how in-depth those pre-flight checks actually are. It's not just a quick glance over and you're good to go, is it?
Not at all. A really thorough pre-flight check. It's more like an orchestra warming up before a big symphony. Every single instrument, or in our case, every component of your drone needs individual attention.
Okay, I like that analogy. So talk me through this pre-flight symphony. What are the key things to look out for? Okay, I like that analogy. So talk me through this pre-flight symphony. What are the key things to look out for?
All right, so first things first, you got to tune your battery.
Okay.
You're checking the charge level, making sure it's in good condition. Remember, a cold battery, it's like a sluggish musician. It's not going to perform as well,
Makes sense.
especially in those winter months. Then you're going to want to test your communication link. That's your conductor's baton. You got to make sure you've got a strong connection with your drone.
Right. You need to be in control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, you're going to do a visual inspection of your drone. Make sure there's no damage, everything is structurally sound. No loose strings allowed.
So it's like a mini aircraft inspection right there in your backyard. What else?
Exactly. You want to check your firmware, make sure it's up to date. Think of it as having the latest sheet music for your orchestra.
Oh, okay.
And last but not least, you got to make sure your GPS is locked on and getting a strong signal. That's your navigation system. It's what's going to keep you on course.
Right. And just like a conductor needs to know the concert hall, a drone pilot has to be aware of their surroundings. We talked about airspace restrictions, but what about those more immediate environmental things?
Oh, absolutely. Weather is huge. Even a little bit of wind can really mess with the drone's stability. So you got to check the wind speed, the direction, and visibility. That's another big one. The last thing you want is to be caught in a fog bank with your drone up in the air.
And I'm guessing that's where those online resources and apps we talked about come in handy, giving you those real-time updates on weather and airspace.
Exactly. They're invaluable. They can even alert you to things like pop-up thunderstorms, which can be really dangerous if you're not expecting them. Remember, safety always comes first. If the conditions aren't right, it's always better to just postpone your flight.
Yeah, better to be safe than sorry. And beyond the weather, you've also got to think about obstacles on the ground.
Oh, for sure. Before you even think about taking off, take a good look around. Are there power lines, tall trees, buildings that can block your drone's signal? All of those things need to be factored in.
So it's like creating this mental map of the area, almost like an obstacle course for your drone.
Exactly. And even when you're up in the air, you can't let your guard down. You've got to maintain that situational awareness. What might look like a pretty flock of birds could actually be a hazard to your drone. You got to stay vigilant.
It's a lot to keep in mind. It sounds like this constant awareness, this assessment of risk, it's a big part of what it means to be a responsible drone pilot.
It is. It's all about respecting the airspace and the people you share it with. Whether you're flying for fun or for work, understanding those UK drone regulations, it's not just about checking boxes, it's about making sure this amazing technology is being used safely, responsibly.
Well said. And on that note of responsibility, we've covered a ton of ground today. From the ins and outs of UK drone regulations to the amazing future of drone technology. It's been quite a ride.
It has. It's always exciting to dive into the world of drones, especially here in the UK.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative, eye-opening, and most importantly, that it's given you some food for thought. Until next time, happy flying, everyone.